Hi everybody, welcome to my new YouTube channel. So I got a new microphone and a new webcam, so hopefully the video quality will be a bit better. I had to retake the same video a bunch of times because my settings on my broadcasting software was a little bit messed up, so I had to tweak it. It's basically been an all-day process to get this video going, but here it is. So the game I want to show you today was a game that I did play today in part of a Lichess4545 league. So what that means is that I joined a league that you can join online for free, and they connect you to 5 other players, and together you form a team of 6 men. And each week they pair you against another team, and the overall score wins. So this round was round 2. It's the second week, and I got paired with a player named Dubuque. And he is a very strong player. He has a rating of 1775. And this game, he actually beat me. And he gained 20 points from it. 20 rating points, that is. So let's take a look at the game. So here I have the white pieces, and my opponent has the black pieces. So I start off with the move d4, which is what I normally play, and he makes the move f5, and to me this seems a bit odd. Normally I don't encounter f5 a lot. This is the Dutch defense. I'm not so familiar with the Dutch defense, so I just develop like normal. I put my bishop on f4. He plays knight f6, a sensible move, bringing the knight out to a good square, and I play e3. And the reason I play e3 is to add lines the queen and the bishop could potentially go to. He plays d6, and when he played d6, I had a feeling that he would go for pawn to e5 to gain space, and that's just a very common setup in these types of openings where d6 is played. So I play c4, and he played the move g6, and at a first glance it looks pretty odd, but he's really planning on fianchettoing his bishop by putting it on the long diagonal. So I play knight to f3, and he follows through and fianchettos this bishop. I play knight c3, just developing, getting it to a good square, and here he castles. Bishop d3, just developing. And now he played the move c6. Now, I didn't really like this move too much for black because that's a square maybe his knight would like to go to. Although in the game he did play eventually knight bd7. So I play the move h3 here in order to provide a safe square for my bishop. If I hadn't done that, let's say I would make a nothing move, so to speak, for argument's sake. And then he would play a move like knight there. I just didn't want this bishop to undergo pressure that it didn't have to go under. I play h3 here. Queen e8 was played. Again, at a first glance, it looks very passive, but he's really trying to add support to this e5 square. He's trying to push. And I saw that during the game, but I didn't really see a way I could stop it. So I castle. Knight bd7. Again, just adding it, like this square has a lot of protection from black, from this piece, from this knight, and from this queen. I play bishop h2 to avoid losing a piece. So for example, again, if I make a nothing move like a3, he's going to go ahead and play e5, and now what am I going to do? I can't take this pawn because I'm going to end up losing material. Over here, I can't take back because I would be down a piece. So let's say, for example, bishop takes, then knight takes, now queen takes, and I'll be down a piece. So that's not an option for me. So I really have to move it out of the way if that were to happen. So that's why instead of playing nothing move like a3, I move my bishop to h2, and this just helps avoid any loss in material. He plays the move e5, and I play bishop c2. Here, this is where things get a little bit tricky. He played the move e4, and my knight's in danger, obviously, but it created a little bit of a weakness. I could play bishop takes d6. This is what was on my mind. However, it turned out not to be the best idea. Just because for the exchange that happened after turned out not to be in my favor so much. So look, I took this pawn, and now I'm threatening to take the rook. If the rook moves here, well, then I just have knight g5 and GG. This rook is trapped. So really, at this point, your only option is to take this pawn. I mean, to take the knight with the pawn, and then I would take the rook, and he takes on g2, and I take back. And here, in hindsight, this wasn't so good for me, because now my bishop would get chopped off. And let's look at the material. He's got 4 pieces. You know, they're not bad, and I only have 2. I mean, yes, I'm up a rook and a pawn, but at the same time, I think black is better here. It's just that the pieces are, in general, it's probably better to have 2 pieces versus a rook and a pawn, especially in the middle game. In the middle game, that's when you really need as many pieces as you can. So in hindsight, that exchange, it looked fancy, but it really wasn't so good. I should have just played knight d2. But the only issue I had with playing knight d2, if I play this, was that everything seemed to be a little bit awkward for me. Just a little bit. But I mean, it's still playable, and definitely a better spot here than what I was in after the series of moves after king takes. And here, my king is in a little bit of danger. If the king moves out of the way, then this pawn is unprotected. So I have a lot of difficulties here already. Queen takes on f8, and I play rook g1 here for the reason being I want to move my king to safety. And that's probably towards the center. But here he makes a very bold move. He plays the move f4. So right away, at a first glance, it looks like a free pawn. It looks like I can take, right? Well, wrong. Now he can just play knight to h5. And now what I'm going to do? Now he has 2 pieces attacking the pawn, and I have nothing defending it. So that pawn is going to drop. And then my king looks very, very bad in that corner. So I don't take, and instead I actually make a worse move. I play the move e4. So right away, it looks like a decent, normal-looking move, gaining space, but in reality, it's weakening a few key squares. In particular, it's weakening this square, d4, and, that later, backfired on me. I played e4, and then he played knight to h5. I'm not so sure why he played knight to h5. Perhaps to add pressure on this pawn with the bishop. And I retreat my king to safety, king f1, but ultimately not the best idea. He played queen to b4, and I make the only move, which is bishop to b3. That protects everything. So right now, this queen is threatening to take this pawn and this pawn. Bishop b3 is the only move to stop that threat. He makes the move knight to f8. I'm not exactly so sure why. Well, actually, I do know why. He wanted to attack my pawn. So once he moved his knight away, his bishop, his powers got unleashed, so to speak. So now he is attacking my pawn, and I have a couple of ways to defend it. So the most natural looking move is queen d3. But I didn't play that. It was in my mind, but I also thought of playing queen c3, which is what I ultimately did. At a first glance, it looks like it hangs a pawn, but I was playing a little bit of hope chess. I was hoping my opponent would take here, which he actually did, but I was hoping he would take here, and which would give me a knight. However, you shouldn't be playing hope chess. really, in hindsight, he shouldn't have taken this pawn. This, if he would have just made any move, then this queen would have been pretty awkward here. I mean, that's just how I see it. So the bishop took, and now I have a tactic, because this rook right here, as soon as this bishop gets off the square, now this pawn becomes pinned to the king. And this rook is just conveniently placed like that, which allows me to simply take the knight. Bishop e6 was played, and here I moved my queen back to f3. In hindsight, that wasn't good at all, because yes, I moved it here to guard e4, to guard the knight. However, it didn't do me so well. After bishop takes with check, bishop takes, queen takes, and now I lost the pawn back, so it's only a rook for a bishop and a knight, so like 2 pieces for a rook. So I played queen to e2, offering to trade, but was that the best idea? Probably in hindsight should have kept my pieces on the board. But we went through with this trade. The bishop took the pawn, but I'm able to plant my rook on b7. And here the knight played e6, and right now I have a winning tactic that I missed during the game. Try to see if you can find it. I'll give you about 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the correct move to play in this position for me would have been to play this move, rook to e7. And that move would have won me a piece. And if I had played it, my opponent probably would have resigned right away. However, I didn't see that. I'm not perfect. I'm bound to make a bunch of bad moves. So I play f3, just solidifying and trying not to lose the pawn. But, in hindsight, I should have won the piece. He plays knight to d4. I don't know why he wanted to trade. My knight was terrible here. It had no good squares. So as soon as he played knight to d4, I felt pretty relieved. So I took that right away. Bishop takes, and now my rook's in danger, so I move it. Why exactly I moved it to g5? I was planning on, attacking through with my pawn, but in hindsight, it wasn't the best idea. It was a little bit too slow. I should have kept it on this second rank in order to add defense for the c pawn. So rook c8 was played, and I play rook g4. Again, it's just a little bit too slow. Other moves could have been h4 or even rook to g2, but he protects that pawn, and now I play h4, c5. Now he's going to start marching his pawn all the way down, and here I play h5, but he doesn't care. He completely ignores it and continues marching through. I take, and he plays this pretty good move, h5. I wasn't expecting it, and here I play rook g2. No other move would have been good. Had I played a move like, I don't know, g5, that would have been terrible for me, because there is no way for me to stop this pawn after he plays the move c3. So I didn't play that. I played the move rook to g2. c3 was played, and now I blocked it with rook c2. h4 was played, and I play king g2. Bishop d2, probably just trying to defend and stop my rook from swinging over. And I take the pawn here on a7, but really I probably shouldn't have done that. Although the reason I did is because I wanted to create a threat of my own with this pawn. So I take there, and the rook played to c6. I play king h3, trying to get at the pawn. He takes, and I take. However, this proved to be pretty bad by taking this pawn. Instead, I should have played the immediate a4, trying to create my own threats. But I took, and now this pawn is going to drop no matter what, and I kind of started to collapse after this point. I played king to h5, trying to go for some cheap tricks. In hindsight, I shouldn't have done anything with my king. I should have kept him in the area. But I wanted to go for it. If he didn't see it, I would give him checkmate on the square. Rook here would give a checkmate. But however, my opponent is not dumb, so he saw it. So he gave me a check. I move, and now he's scaring me with this pawn. So like, how am I going to protect both? I don't know. I give him a check. He plays king to h7. I give another check there, and I made the dumb move of the game, which was rook to a8. And it's funny. I tried making the same threat against him when his king was on this square on f8, and well, actually his king was on g8 and mine was on g6, but you get the idea. I was trying for this cheap rook checkmate trick, and at this point I didn't really have much else to do because I was too scared of this pawn. I didn't think of anything else I could do. I thought this pawn was going to advance no matter what, and I'd lose. A better move I had that would have held was rook to f7, and if this pawn were to advance, I can simply move my king, and how are you making progress? It's not that easy to make progress here. But I didn't see that rook to f7 resource, so I opted for a cheap trick, this, and just simply the opponent gave me a check. I moved down, and at this point I'm clearly worse. There's not that much I can do, but king f5 sealed the deal after f2, and now my rook can even go to this file to help protect. I give a check, and just try to stop him, but he gives me a check and promotes on the next move, and I'm basically lost here, and this is when I resigned. So that's pretty much it for the game. I hope you learned a thing or two out of it. I took a little bit more time than usual, and I think my play was a little bit better. It's not like I blundered a fork or I put a rook on a square where he could take. It was really, I got outplayed. I just didn't make the correct moves and didn't see the right tactics. But hopefully I'll get better as time goes on in this Lichess League. Alright everybody, thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to see new videos when they come out. Take care.